What if love isn't something that happens to you, but something that asks you to choose? And what if choosing love means removing something that blocks you and surrendering it to the great mystery? Those are exactly the questions Saturn and Neptune are asking each one of us as they inch closer and closer to each other for a rare and momentous meeting on February 20th, 2026. Right now, Neptune, the realm of possibility, infinite possibility, and Saturn, the force that gives ideas shape and form, are moving together across a very potent threshold. From the end of the tropical zodiac, the final degrees of Pisces, to the very beginning at 0 Aries, where they will come together. This is the passage from dissolution to emergence, from what has dissolved back into the sea, into what is ready to take its first breath. Moments like this don't arrive to be observed. They arrive to be entered, to be consciously engaged. Because as anyone who's ever birthed something new, a child, a relationship, a vocation, a new way of living, knows something must be surrendered for something else to breathe. As Saturn and Neptune come together at the first spark of Aries, what is lived only as longing or dream is being asked to be born. So the question becomes, what do you want to birth at this threshold moment? And what are you willing to release to make room for that birth? To engage this moment, we turn to our ancestors, to their wisdom passed down through myth, archetypal stories that carry the essence of the experience of being human. This story comes to us from the Greeks, from Hesiod's Theogony. It tells of the first meeting of Saturn and Neptune, not as planets, but as living forces, and how through rupture and surrender, love itself entered the world. Before we begin, a note to our gentle listeners. This myth contains images of sex and violence. Please take care of yourself as you listen. As we step into this story, let your awareness brush against what is trying to be born in you and what must loosen its hold for this birth to happen. So sit back, relax, and let the magical words that transport us into the realm of story, once upon a time, transport you. Once upon a time, long before the world had edges, before seasons or stories or much of anything else, there was Gaia, the living earth. She wasn't just soil and stone, she was warmth. She was possibility, the kind of presence you feel in your flesh and bones. Everything that ever could be was curled up somewhere inside of her, waiting, waiting. Above her, Uranus, the vast sky, glimmering, immense. In those early days, Uranus pressed himself close against Gaia, covering her completely. Together, Gaia and Uranus mated, created life, the Titans, the Cyclopes, the 100-handed ones. But Uranus hated them, and each time they were born, he hid them away in Gaia's womb. What began as intimacy curdled into repression. Gaia ached under the weight of children she could not bring forth. In her anguish, Gaia devised a plan and called her children to help her. But most were too afraid. Only Kronos, Saturn, stepped forward. Crafty-minded and courageous enough to act, he wasn't the biggest, nor was he the fiercest, but he had a sharpness to him, a clarity that cut through fear. Gaia placed in his hands a jagged-toothed sickle, a weapon forged for the single purpose of cutting through the sky itself. That night, when Uranus came down to lie with Gaia again, the world fell into a hush. And from the shadows, Kronos struck. With a single swift motion, Kronos raised the sickle and cut through the sky itself. The universe opened. Uranus recoiled upward, shocked, pulled away from Gaia. And into that sudden space rushed air, wind, breath. The first gasp of a world being born. Whoever said liberation is clean? That's Saturn, the Lord of manifestation. What Gaia formed, Saturn made real. In this act of creation, he's the courage and the will to confront fear, to do what's needed, even when it seems impossible, even when it feels almost unbearable. From the blood of Uranus falling onto Gaia's soil, new beings arose like sparks from a fire. The Furies, with their fierce eyes and stormy wings, they were born to avenge every injustice, every wrong. The giants, huge, wild, unstoppable, they shook the earth, which each step, raw power made flesh. And the Meliae, the ashwood nymphs, graceful, quiet, glowing like light through the leaves. They carried sap and honey and were set to nurse early humanity. Born from a violent act, the Meliae emerged as healers, guardians of trees, keepers of gentle nourishment. Kronos flung the severed genitals into the sea, the seed of what had been severed, the rage, the repression. The first cosmic interaction between Saturn and Neptune. And it's there, in Neptune's realm, not the tidy pool of resolution, but in the midst of upheaval, in the roiling sea of infinite potential, that something miraculous happens. From Neptune's churning waters, where Saturn's violent act met Neptune's boundless potential, something new began to foam. A maiden formed not from the womb, but from wave, Aphrodite, the goddess of love, beauty, connection, relationship, born not from peace, but from upheaval, not as a child, but as a fully formed goddess, an immortal archetypal force, birthed from the aftermath of severance, and crucially, from the ocean, from Neptune, from the infinite ocean of compassion and universal love. So if we ask, where does love come from? The Greeks tell us, love is not only born from stability and security. Love is born when we stop burying our creations, when we overthrow repression, when we surrender our ruptured wounds, our pains, to something vaster. When what has been cut away transforms into love in the ocean of compassion, when it's surrendered to Neptune, that's where it happens. That's Neptune. That's the part of you that can hold contradiction without collapsing, that can meet pain with presence, that can turn wounding into wonder. In this single world-creating moment, love and vengeance, creation and chaos, nourishment and upheaval, all enter the world together, all from the same act. And this is the paradox the myth reveals. When something long suppressed finally breaks open, everything emerges. The shadow, the potential, the rage, the beauty, the healing, the possibility of new life. From the severed sky came the first breath of freedom. From the wound came the forces that shape our world, the fierce, the tender, the disruptive, and the nourishing. And from the foam of upheaval came the promise of love itself. This myth is not about the ancient gods. It's about us. It's about you. It's what happens every time something wants to be born. Each archetype lives within us: Gaia, Uranus, Kronos, Neptune, and those waiting to be born. Sit with each of them. Notice what stirs in your body when you imagine Gaia's ache, Uranus's resistance, Kronos' sharp clarity, or Neptune's infinite holding. Let them speak in image, in emotion, in sensation. Resist the temptation to ask what they mean. Ask instead, what do they awaken in me? Something in you already knows. Gaia, Uranus, Kronos, Neptune, Aphrodite, they're not just characters. They're inner weather systems we move through all the time. The Gaia in us carries more than she can fully express, all of our ideas, longings, unlived lives, waiting in the dark. Uranus clamps down, chasing perfection, chasing an ideal, refusing anything seemingly imperfect to see the light of day. And there's Kronos, who finally acts, who cuts away what can't continue, and who can also, if the wound in him is left unhealed, unconscious, can repeat exactly what hurt us, as he does by swallowing his own children later on. Then there's Neptune, that can take what's been severed and heal it, allowing something larger, an ocean that can hold the whole story, not just the pretty parts. And then there's Aphrodite, love, beauty, the magnetic pull toward connection, relationship, life. Only ever born when what was repressed is cut loose and surrendered to that ocean of compassion. The invitation of this moment, with Saturn and Neptune hovering between the last degree of Pisces and the very first spark of Aries, is not to keep reenacting the same pattern. We don't have to keep swallowing what scares us. We don't have to keep pushing our own creations back into the dark. We don't have to become the next version of the very pattern we're trying to escape. Instead, we can let something else happen. Let Gaia tell us the truth about what hurts and what wants to be born. Let Saturn make a clean, necessary cut where a cycle really has to end, an addiction, a loyalty, a self-betrayal. And then, instead of armoring up, release the severed pattern to Neptune. Let it dissolve. Let it be held in something bigger than our personal defenses and fear. Because love doesn't enter this myth from safety. It enters when the wound meets the ocean of compassion. So as you go about your life, you might just notice, without forcing anything, where am I Gaia right now? Where am I Uranus? Where am I Saturn at the edge of a necessary cut? And where is Neptune in me, quietly waiting for me to surrender what I alone cannot fix? You don't have to answer these questions right now. Just let them move around inside you. Because whatever is trying to be born through you, your Aphrodite, your birth of love, will come from what you stop suppressing, from what you're willing to cut loose, and from what you're brave enough to offer to the deep. Just as this myth reveals, the end and the beginning are never far apart. When we cut away what no longer serves us, when we surrender what we cannot control, something new emerges. This moment is about initiation, about becoming a force in the world that knows how to birth love, even from chaos. If you're ready to embody what this myth has awakened in you, this is your beginning. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me at my website or in the comments below. At Zero Aries, creation begins again. Let's make love the next world we build.